Khalil Tate, single-game rushing yards by a quarterback, 327 yards. On October 7th, 2017, Tate wasn't even supposed to start. Arizona's starter got dinged up, and in trots Tate, just a sophomore, against Colorado in Boulder. The dude proceeds to absolutely torch the Buffs for 327 rushing yards as a quarterback. Not Army's triple option kind of quarterback either. This was out of the spread. And he did it on just 14 carries. That's 23.4 yards per carry. From his first touch, it looked like he was playing NCAA Football 14 on rookie mode. He took zone reads to the house, stiff-armed defenders into another dimension, and left the entire Colorado secondary grasping at air. 4 of those runs ended in touchdowns, including a 75-yard sprint that looked like someone hit the turbo button. This wasn't just a record-breaking night, it was a launch pad. The very next week, Tate was named Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Week. Actually, he'd win it 4 weeks in a row, the first player in conference history to do that. And for Arizona, they found lightning in a bottle. The Wildcats went from looking like a mid-tier team to a must-watch squad thanks to one guy rewriting the record book in real time. Khalil Tate didn't just run wild, he ran into history. Connor Halliday, most passing attempts in a single game, 89 attempts. If you ever played Madden and thought, you know what would be fun? Throwing it on every down, you've got something in common with Mike Leach and Connor Halliday. On October 19, 2013, Washington State's quarterback dropped back 89 times against Oregon. That's more like a season total stat for Iowa. Leach's air raid offense was always known for slinging it, but this was the football version of taking every shot in a game of horse. Halliday racked up 557 passing yards, but let's be real, when you're throwing it nearly 90 times, you'd better break 500. What makes it even more wild? This wasn't some triple overtime marathon, this was regulation. 4 quarters, and Halliday still had time to throw 5 touchdown passes and 4 picks. Classic chaos. The Cougars lost 62-38, but it wasn't because Halliday didn't try. The guy had ice on his shoulder, elbow, and probably wrist before the fourth quarter even ended. And yeah, the previous record? Also, Leach. Graham Harrell at Texas Tech had the old mark with 72 attempts. Leach basically broke his own high score. This record, still untouched in FBS. Because even in today's pass-happy world, 89 throws is just absurd. David Neill, single-game total offense by a true freshman, 611 yards. Before anyone ever heard of Johnny Manziel or Caleb Williams, there was David Neill, an 18-year-old slinging the rock for Nevada. On October 10, 1998, this true freshman went nuclear on San Jose State. Neill threw for 611 yards and 5 touchdowns, setting a then record for most total offense in a single game by a true freshman. Now let's put that into perspective. Most true freshmen are still learning how to read defenses. Neill? He was reading them and dismantling them, on the fly. He completed 52 of 76 passes. And yeah, that's a real stat line. If you're doing the math, that's more attempts than some teams have in 3 weeks. He wasn't dinking and dunking either. Neill was launching it downfield, finding receivers in tight windows and operating like a vet in a system built to air it out. This was back when the WAC was full of offensive fireworks. But Neill's performance stood out even in that arena football vibe. The Wolfpack lost the game 55-48 in classic late 90s shootout fashion, but Neill's record stood as a testament to how ready he was, right out of high school. In a world where people obsess over 5-star QB recruits, David Neill's 611-yard freshman clinic is a forgotten masterpiece. Johnny Jackson. Most interceptions returned for a touchdown in a single game. 3. In a wild showdown against Texas in November 1987, Jackson didn't just intercept 3 passes. He returned all 3 for touchdowns. 3 pick sixes in one game. That's not just defensive domination. That's video game cheat code stuff. Each pick was its own highlight reel. He read the quarterback like a book, broke on the ball like he knew the script, and outran everyone to the end zone. 3 separate times. By the third one, Texas might have considered just taking a knee on 3rd and long. Houston ended up winning 60-40 in a chaotic, high-octane shootout that gave Jackson all the spotlight he needed. Those 18 points he scored off defense, that's more than most receivers get in a game. To this day, no FBS player has ever matched it. 3 pick sixes in one game remains the standard. Most corners dream of one. Jackson made it a hat trick. In a program known for offensive fireworks, Jackson proved defense could get in on the scoring party too. It's one of the most slept-on records in college football history, and it may never fall. Michael Turk, single-game punting average, 63 yards per attempt. All right, let's talk punting. Yeah, punting. Not usually the sexiest part of the game, unless your name is Michael Turk and you turn it into a freaking highlight reel. In the 2019 season opener, Arizona State was easing in a new freshman quarterback, so the offense was, let's say, conservative. That gave Turk, yes, the punter, plenty of time to shine. And shine he did. He booted 5 punts in the game, for an average of 63.0 yards per kick. That's not a typo. 63 yards. Perfect punt. The dude was absolutely launching rockets off his foot. You'd think NASA was on the sideline tracking his hang time. One of those punts flew 75 yards, another hit the turf and just rolled forever like it had a GPS locked on the 2-yard line. Kent State didn't have a chance at a return. These weren't punts. They were artillery strikes. To put it in perspective, most punters are hyped if they average 45. Turk dropped a 63 bomb with volume. This wasn't a one-and-done fluke. Even crazier? After the game, Turk went viral for looking more like a powerlifter than a punter. Broad shoulders, sleeveless shirt. Dude looked like he was about to bench press a linebacker. He even declared for the NFL draft after the season. Twice. Long story. But for one magical August night, the punter put on a show, and he walked off the field with the best single-game punting average in NCAA history. Rashawn Woods, single-game receiving touchdowns, 7. Let's talk about Rashawn Woods, the man who turned SMU's secondary into his personal punching bag one afternoon in 2003. On September 20th, Oklahoma State was in Stillwater to host SMU, and Rashawn Woods decided it was gonna be his day. The dude caught 7 touchdown passes. That's not just a school record. It's the most ever in an NCAA Division I game. Woods was already a star, but this game launched him into legend status. He was uncoverable. Double teams, zone coverage, didn't matter. He was making circus grabs, toe tapping in the corner, and straight up mossing guys. His quarterback, Josh Fields, just kept dialing up the same number, 82. Woods finished with 13 catches for 232 yards. And again, 7 of those were touchdowns. That's like Randy Moss on rookie mode. Oklahoma State blew out SMU 52-6, and Woods basically did all the damage himself. The Mustangs tried everything, different corners, bracket coverage, prayer, but nothing worked. This wasn't just a stat padding day either. Woods already had a rep for being one of the best route runners in college football. This just confirmed he was on another level. The NFL took notice too. He'd go in the first round of the 2004 draft. But no matter what else he did, Woods will forever be remembered for that one ridiculous day when 7 touchdowns rained from the sky. Still unmatched. Still unreal. Emmett White, single-game all-purpose yards, 578 yards. You want absurd? Let's talk about a stat line that looks like it was forged in a creative player mode. Enter Emmett White, Utah State running back, November 4th, 2000. In a WAC showdown with New Mexico State, White absolutely exploded for 578 all-purpose yards. That's the most in NCAA history, and honestly, it feels like a typo. He racked up 322 rushing yards, 134 receiving yards, and tacked on 122 return yards, just for good measure. The man was doing everything. White scored 3 touchdowns, but it was his versatility that broke the game. He was catching screens, juking linebackers, outrunning corners, and spinning through special teams like a cheat code. What's wild is that most all-purpose records are set by return specialists who catch a few passes or break one big run. White did nearly all of it from scrimmage, from the slot, and not from kickoff returns. He was the offense, the field position game, and the highlight reel, all rolled into one. And Utah State won a close one, 42-37, White's day cementing him as an instant NCAA legend. That record has held for nearly 25 years, and with the way teams rotate backs and limit touches today, it may never be broken. Emmett White may not be a household name, but that one game, pure chaos. One guy, nearly 600 yards, no breaks. Ashlan Davis, most kickoff return touchdowns in a season, 5. Special teams touchdowns are supposed to be rare. You're lucky to see one a season. But in 2004, Ashlan Davis turned every kickoff into a scoring threat for Tulsa. He took 5 kickoffs to the house. That's right, 5, in a single season. That's the most in NCAA history, and it's not even close. Davis wasn't just dangerous, he was terrifying for opposing kickers. Coaches literally started squibbing it to avoid him. Each return was a masterclass in speed, vision, and patience. He didn't just run past guys, he set up blocks, cut at the perfect time, and then hit the gas. And once he found the crease, gone. Davis didn't play for a national title contender, but that made it even cooler. He was a hidden gem on a mid-major team just wreaking havoc on special teams. And these weren't fluke returns either. He had back-to-back games with kick return touchdowns, twice that season. Who does that? By the end of 2004, teams stopped kicking to him. He forced entire special teams units to change their strategy. And honestly, his tape from that season looks like it was edited in Madden with all the sliders maxed. Most return records come with a long career. Davis made his name in one electric season, and the NCAA hasn't seen anything like it since. Elvis Dumervil, most forced fumbles in a season, 10. When you've got a name like Elvis Dumervil, you'd better show up big. And in 2005, he was basically a one-man wrecking crew at Louisville. That year, Dumervil forced 10 fumbles, the most in a single NCAA season. That's 10 drive-ending, soul-crushing, momentum-flipping hits, all from the same dude. He wasn't just getting sacks, he was ending possessions. Quarterbacks lived in fear. Running backs hugged the ball like it was their firstborn. But it didn't matter. Dumervil had this sixth sense for the perfect punch, swipe, or blindside hit. And his season wasn't just fumbles. He also had 20 sacks that year. Yeah, 20. He was leading the nation in basically every defensive stat that matters. The guy was a terror off the edge. Speed, leverage, explosiveness. He had it all, packed into a 5'11" frame that somehow got under every tackle. Against Kentucky alone, he racked up 6 sacks and 3 forced fumbles in one game. That's a career day for most players. Dumervil went on to a strong NFL career, but 2005 at Louisville, that was peak havoc. Offensive coordinators tried everything. Double teams, rollouts, chip blocks, nothing worked. He was coming, and he was going to hit the quarterback and steal the football. Will Anderson Jr., most tackles for loss in a season, 34 and a half. If there's ever been a certified chaos agent on defense, it's Will Anderson Jr. In 2021, the Alabama linebacker didn't just play fast. He played like he was launched out of a cannon on every snap. That season, Anderson racked up 34.5 tackles for loss. Yeah, 34 and a half. That's nearly 36 times he blew up a play behind the line of scrimmage. The next closest guy? Not even sniffing that number. And this wasn't some lower conference stat padding. This was SEC football. Georgia, LSU, Auburn, Ole Miss. Anderson did it to all of them. If a team lined up to run wide, forget about it. Anderson was already in the backfield. It felt like every snap, the camera was panning to Anderson hitting somebody before the play had time to develop. He read screens, disrupted zone reads, hunted down scrambling QBs. You name it. He finished with 17.5 sacks too, but it was the constant penetration that set him apart. He just lived behind the line of scrimmage. And keep in mind, this was the same year Bryce Young won the Heisman. But ask any Bama fan, and they'll tell you. Will Anderson was the soul of that team. He finished 5th in Heisman voting himself, which is absurd for a defender. Luke Kuechly, most total tackles in a season, 191. You know how some linebackers are just everywhere? Like you're watching the game and somehow they're in on every single play? That was Luke Kuechly, but turned up to 11. In 2011, Kuechly went full Terminator mode, racking up 191 total tackles for Boston College. That's the most ever in a single FBS season since official records began. And honestly, it felt like even that number might be low. He had 14-plus tackles in 10 of 12 games. The man was a machine. Sideline to sideline, up the middle, in coverage. Didn't matter. If the ball moved, Luke Kuechly was there 2 steps later. You know it's bad when offensive coordinators are game planning around a linebacker, not a pass rusher. Boston College wasn't exactly lighting up the scoreboard that year, but they had a straight-up tackling superhero anchoring their defense. And this wasn't just a one-year fluke. Kuechly led the nation in tackles 3 years in a row before heading to the NFL and becoming one of the most respected pros of the 2010s. But 2011? That was the peak. 191 tackles. That's over 15 per game. Like clockwork. Luke didn't just play linebacker, he hunted. And that record still stands untouched. Kevin Lowe, single-game average yards per rush, 21. Let's get crazy. You've heard of big rushing games. But how about the most absurd yards per carry average you've ever seen? Enter Kevin Lowe, Wyoming running back, who went off against Colorado State on November 10, 1984. He didn't just run wild, he ran efficiently, historically efficiently. Lowe had 10 carries for 210 yards. That's 21 yards per rush. 21! Just straight up gashing the defense for chunk after chunk. He broke off 3 separate runs over 50 yards, each time hitting the second level and just dusting everyone. It was like Colorado State's defense forgot how to tackle or take angles. Now, this isn't a career or season record, but for one game, with at least 10 carries, no one's ever been that explosive. There have been 300-yard games with more volume. Sure. But 21.0 yards per touch, that's just silly. Lowe wasn't a Heisman finalist, and this wasn't some massive bowl game. But that stat line, it's still in the record books, nearly 40 years later. Wyoming won that border war rivalry game, and Kevin Lowe forever etched his name in NCAA history for a day where he made every carry count like nobody else ever has. DeAngelo Williams, most career 100-yard rushing games, 34. When people talk about all-time great college backs, DeAngelo Williams somehow still gets overlooked. And that's wild, because the man was a walking 100-yard game. From 2002 to 2005, Williams posted 34 games with 100-plus rushing yards out of the 44 games he played. That's over 77% of the time. You could set your watch to it. DeAngelo was getting 100. He was the centerpiece of Memphis football, one of the most consistent, durable, and explosive backs of the 2000s. He finished his career with 6,026 rushing yards, which at the time was second most in NCAA history. But it was the consistency that really set him apart. He'd run for 122 against Tennessee, 199 against Louisville, 263 against USF. Big games, big numbers, every week. Rain, shine, stacked boxes. It didn't matter. He still got his yards. And he wasn't just grinding out 4-yard carries. Williams had speed, vision, and home run power. He could bust a 60-yard touchdown just as easily as he'd wear down a defense for 28 carries and 145 yards. He helped put Memphis football on the national radar. Before him, the Tigers were an afterthought. With him, must-watch mid-major. And now it's your turn. Click the subscribe button, give us a like, drop a comment. What should we explore in our next video? We'll see you in the next one.